guys, Know the Art here with another speed paint adventure. I am really excited to share with you all this amazing piece that I worked so hard on. I was so excited. I don't normally do original character pieces. I don't usually have like my own like characters that I come up with. I'm usually doing fan art or draw this in your style stuff, and so I was really excited to have this piece pop out of my head. Um, Now, this was for Mermaid, and I assume by the time I post this video, it will no longer be that. And I had planned out 3 pieces I was going to do for Mermaid. I wasn't going to do any more than that, just because I didn't think I would have the time to do more than that, because I wanted to post some other things. But turns out I put in 3 different mermaids than the ones that I was going to post. So in all, I think I'm going to have 5 mermaids on my Instagram account. 2 of which are of my own design, I think. Yes. No, 3 of my own design. 2 of those are fan art pieces from Demon Slayer. This one is of my own creation, and then the other 2 are draw this in your style pieces of some of my favorite artists on Instagram. So I am really excited how this one came about. It started off with just the person figure itself, and I wanted to turn the bottom part into a mermaid. And then I was looking at references for mermaid bottoms, because I wanted to do and practice different like fins and stuff, and I saw tentacles and I was like, yes, I'm going to do tentacles with this piece. It works perfectly with the body and the pose that I have going on right now, and I just went to town. I was in the zone the entire time of the piece, and I was so excited to do this. The last little bit for the sketching part, I was trying to figure out what to do for the hair, and I decided to go with long and flowing. Most people who do like tentacle people keep it short, but I wanted to see how it did long, and this is what I came up with. I don't have a name for her. If you want to give her a name, let me know in the comments. But today we're gonna kind of talk about my process, talk about myself, kind of like a meet the artist kind of thing. I don't really have any mermaid facts, since I already did that in a previous video. If you want to check that out, it's my mer persona. I go into a lot of facts about mermaids. But today is just kind of my process. So starting with a sketch, I do kind of a traditional drawing sketch, because I, for the life of me, cannot sketch digitally. I need the physical paper and pencil to draw this. I've tried to sketch digitally, and it's too much of a hassle. I've watched other people sketch digitally, and it just seems so messy to me. Like, they're making all these rough lines and stuff, and then they can figure out which lines they want. I can't do that with myself. I have to do the rough sketching on a physical thing rather than on an electronic thing. It's just how my brain works for that. So I then scan it into my computer. I know it would take less time to just draw it on the computer already, but again, I'm kind of a traditionalist in the sketching portion. So then I scan it into my computer, and then I put it in my program. Right now I use Medibang. It's a free program. I think it works really well. I think it has the tools that you see in all of the other products that cost money. I used to use Fire Alpaca. I would say Fire Alpaca is a perfect program to start with. It's free. It has the basic of basic tools to help you get to know and understand how digital art works. Medibang goes into more of that Photoshop look, You can also download more brushes that you want. So I have kind of a customization of brushes that I use. I mostly use the Sumi pen for my pieces to kind of get that like sketchy look behind it. I used to just use the pen tool the entire time, but it made it like too bold for me, and I really didn't want that in my pieces anymore. So yeah, that's what I do with that. And then if you noticed in some of my videos now, I try and do the process of like the alpha lock stuff, but I haven't quite figured out everything about it because there's some things that make me very frustrated. Otherwise, I just go layer by layer, adding colors, adding pieces on top of it. My layer count usually goes to about, I want to say, maybe 12 to 15 layers, because I usually put colors, like if I did the eyes and the lips, I'll do that together. I usually put colors together that are not like touching, so like the body color of that like muted green and the tentacle color of that like mossy green, those would be on two separate layers, so then I don't have to worry about accidentally going over the color, and then I can just kind of scribble on through that way with that. And then I color in the base colors for everything on the piece, and then I usually at this point I add the background color, just so I can see like how the colors are all working together. I would say I like the idea of not painting in a white blank canvas. You should always have some sort of color with it. Then that way it's easier to tell which colors work well together. So I had this gradient blue, and the entire time I was doing it, I wasn't quite sure if like these colors were working well together, and because the blue like muted the colors really badly, and I just didn't like it. So eventually you'll see me kind of working with which colors work best. I don't know if I recorded it or not, but eventually I came up with like a blue orange background because it made the piece kind of pop a little bit more with that. So after I figure out the background, I usually go in with the shading. So I have my base color, and then I go a little bit lighter or darker for those shadows and highlights of those pieces. And then with the color palette, I've been working with a predetermined color palette that one of my favorite artists kind of gave out in their story feed, and I try and kind of base that off of that, like combining different colors from it together to get what I want. So you'll see kind of these mossy green and muted teal blue with a pink, and I kind of like to stand out with the colors a little bit, but also making sure that they kind of mix well together. So that was kind of my process with this one, because I wasn't quite sure. I knew I didn't want to do normal skin color for this piece, and so I knew I wanted to go with more of a blue for her like face and semi-body, and then a different color for the tentacles that we see there. I have to say I'm very proud of myself with how far I've gone into art making. So if you guys don't know, I'll kind of give my background story of like my art self. So starting way back when, about the time I was maybe 4 or 5, I remember sitting down with my grandpa, and he would draw stick figures, like stick horses and stick people and that sort of stuff. And I started to kind of copy what he did with there, and from then point on, I enjoyed doing art. I loved crafting things, I loved making things, I loved drawing all sorts of stuff. I made so many pictures for my grandparents, and they had them posted everywhere in their house. When we were cleaning up my grandparents' house after they both passed away, I found so many of my previous art that I was just like, I didn't realize they kept all of this, and it was really sweet to see that they kept it. Moving on, I started to do a lot of like after school things, like from the Parks and Rec department of our city. And so one thing was like crafting, and it was they had a crafting thing once a month, and we learned like to make snowman out of mason jars, out of socks. There was this really cool like beaded thing where we made a snail, and I'm sad that I lost it. I don't know what happened to it. It was so cool. It was like a 3D beaded snail. It was like my favorite craft that I did, and I have to say that crafting like class taught me so much patience. It was nuts. And then elementary art, I don't remember a whole lot about it. Just because I went to like 3 separate schools throughout my elementary time. Middle school was the time where I shined in art. Nowadays, I know that you're not supposed to like copy from like art books or like things, but I was big into Disney. I was big into anime, manga. Card captors were the big things that I drew for my stuff. And so I drew a lot of that. I drew constantly. This was also the time that I gained a lot of anxiety, and I started to get insomnia about 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And art was the only way that I could calm myself down in the middle of the night, and I would just work on my art projects in the middle of the night. And they always turned out really well because I was always the one that got best of show or first place, second place, or third place in a lot of the categories for our art shows, but I never got the trophy. And it was all based on popularity because people voted for you. So if I had any popular kids in my class, I never got it. Granted, I like never got it in the 3 years, and I was so mad. There were some popular kids who were really good at art, and I think some of them deserved it. Some of them did not, though, and it really made me mad that I never got it because I always got all the awards for almost every single category I was in. Anyway, moving on to high school, I got into 9th grade and I took art because I was like, yes, I love art, it's so great. And they were like, realism, you must draw in realism. And I was like, what? I had such a difficult time with the concept of drawing in realism. I stopped doing art throughout high school. I did computer art my sophomore year, and then I didn't pick up art until senior year just because I needed classes, because I had all of the required courses done for school. So I did like 3D art, which I enjoyed more because I didn't have to do such realistic stuff. But when I got to college, I didn't want to do art because I didn't want to do realism, but I did like photography. So I got an art minor the first time I went to college. It wasn't until after I got to college in the degree of theater that I realized that theater was more of a hobby to me, and I decided that I wanted to become a teacher. So I went back to college and got a teaching degree in art and theater instead. But I did have to take more art classes, and it really made me get outside of my shell of drawing. I didn't quite do a lot of realistic drawings, which is fine, because I eventually became more of a self-taught artist as I went through teaching high schoolers, because man, did I feel underprepared when I was teaching high schoolers. I thought I had everything down, I had the pedagogy, I had all of that, but I didn't necessarily have the skills to teach students, I felt like. Like, I would give them tips and tricks of what I learned and knew how to do, but then I was learning as I was teaching. I was learning on the go on how to do this, and I've come to realize I've gotten a lot better as an artist because of teaching, because I had to learn how to teach this stuff to other people. And it wasn't just I wanted to share my passion, I wanted them to understand that everybody could do art. And so I have grown so much in just like 4 years. It's been 4 years since I finished my kind of art teaching journey, and you can definitely see the growth that I've had in my art making skills, and then you've seen my growth from my digital art until now, because I have seen a huge jump in drawing because I'm looking at references, I'm learning, I'm even if I get frustrated, I will just draw, and if I don't like it, oh well, I'm not going to show it to anyone. I might use it as a reference later. And so on that note, that's what I have. If you don't like your art now, that's okay. You're going to progress and learn, and that's a good thing. And this is all I have time for now, but if you like what I have to say, don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and ring the bell for any notifications. I always try to post on Monday, and make sure that you're staying safe. Bye!